So buying a new or new to you home could be on your radar this year, but I don't want you to do that if any of these 7 situations are hitting too close to home. So here are the 7 reasons to not buy a house in 2024. So reason number 1 is all about interest rates. And if you believe that interest rates are gonna go back down to what we saw a couple years ago, I believe that you are mistaken. Because the highest fixed 5-year rate that we have seen over the last couple decades was 21.75% in mid-1981. And the lowest that we've seen was 1.44% in September, October of 2021. I mean, those rates are gone, those bottom rates, and we're not gonna see them coming again. However, as soon as interest rates do change, because they will, they're not gonna stay where they are right now, they're gonna come down in the coming months. You are not alone. And if you're waiting for that drop, there are many others who are also waiting for it too. So I believe as we enter the spring market and when those interest rates drop, not only Calgary, but markets across Canada are going to see a flood of buyers because they're thinking this is the time. But the reality is I actually don't think interest rates are our biggest problem in Calgary. What I think it is actually housing supply, but that's gonna be for another video. And what you need to do now is focus on your costs. Don't focus on the rate that you're getting. Get into the market sooner than later because I want you to be proactive in figuring out how to adjust your costs as time goes on, but getting into the market is more important than timing the rates. So having financial stability is a real key when it comes to home ownership. I mean, you wanna have what we call our sleep at night fund. And what this is basically a fund that you have, and it's kind of your savings. It's 2-part really. One part is about 6 months of your actual needs budget is put aside, and you have that in savings that you can use for any emergencies. Because the thing is, if you focus on stuff now that is hard, it could actually make your life a little bit easier in the future. But if you focus on things that are really easy right now, your life could actually get harder in the future. And I love this quote by Dan Pink in the book of The Power of Regret. It says, "Anticipating our regrets slows our thinking. It applies our cerebral brakes, giving us time to gather information and to reflect before we decide what to do." So, thinking ahead, the future version of you and what that person needs probably is kind of a sleep at night fund, because you want to have that type of money, right, set aside so that it's when things happen, it's not an emergency. And how do you calculate it? Well, I said 6 months of your needs, but what does that mean? So if you have $100,000 coming in, for example, 50,000 is usually your goal that you want to have towards your needs. And this goes back to the 50-30-20 rule that we talked about in a past video, where 50% of your income goes to needs, 30% to your wants like clothing and entertainment, and 20% to savings and donations. So if you have 50,000 set aside for your needs, you want to have half of that in savings. So in this scenario, it would be $25,000. And here's the biggest thing though. If saving for a house or the new house that you're going to buy because you already own something, and making sure that this sleep at night fund is all set and ready to go, your 6-month fund, it might feel a little bit exhausting. It might feel a little bit intimidating. So the biggest thing is look at your costs, plan for your future, and make decisions that you kind of have knowledge about. If getting into the property is more important and you've only got 3 months of savings, well, then maybe that's the right thing to do. But you have to make those decisions for yourself and be aware that having this type of money set aside is very, very important for your financial future. So the second part of this whole sleep at night fund is actually planning for the type of property that you're going to be buying. Because if you're buying an older home versus a condo, they're not all made equal. And the reality is some of them might cost more for ownership, and you want to be prepared for that. Because if you end up buying an old house, there might be a lot of renovations you got to do. As soon as you open the walls, if things that are not the greatest and you want to change them, once you open walls, you don't know what's behind there, and that could actually cost a lot more than you're expecting. If you buy a brand new house, I mean, you're going to have landscaping. You're going to have a yard. You're going to have potentially a basement to develop. There's costs there that could kind of creep up and surprise you. Maybe you're going to buy a condo and you're going to have potentially reserve fund issues and issues in a building that they didn't plan for, and now you have a special assessment and you got to fork up some cash. So no matter what type of property you're purchasing, on top of your 6-month savings plan, like I talked about just before, you want to have the second part of the Sleep at Night fund and just proactively plan for that extra money. And if all of that is too much and setting aside all this cash feels like too much for purchasing, well, then maybe buying a property this year isn't the right thing, but it doesn't mean it's forever. So reason number 4, it's all about how long are you going to be living in this house. And if you're planning on buying something and only owning it for a short amount of time, even in this market, it could still be a little bit risky. So recently we had one of the viewers reach out and they wanted to spend about 1.5 million on a new property here in Calgary. Lots of options, lots of ideas, lots of great neighborhoods for them to move into, but they were only going to be living here for anywhere from a year to 2 years. And after some conversations, we decided, and they decided, that it was a better situation for them to actually rent, invest their money somewhere else, because they didn't really know how long they're going to be here. Yeah, there's cost to selling your property. There's cost to buying your property. There's also the chance that values are going to go up, which they probably will over the next couple of years. But is it worth it? Is it worth that risk? That's a decision that you have to make. But ultimately, if you're planning on only owning a property for a short amount of time in Calgary, then renting might be the better way to go versus buying something and then trying to figure out what to do with it when you're wanting to get rid of it. Reason number 5, it's all about the multiple offers. So fun, right? Well, not always.
No.
So multiple offers are a part of our market and probably will be for the next couple of years. So if being a part of bidding wars, being a part of multiple offers is a little bit uncomfortable or too much for you, then you need to do one of 2 things. The first one is find an agent that is really great at helping you through that process. The second one is basically forget about buying until certain times of the year when multiple offers aren't happening as much. And that is typically around Christmases and kind of the slow seasons. So sometimes you can, find deals that way. Not going to be deals in less prices, it's just going to be less offers. And if that's what you're fearing, then that would be a good thing to do. However, there are some strategies that you can employ in your back pocket that you can have that will help you through multiple offer situations. The first one is, again, find that right agent to work with you to do that. But if you're tied into being with an agent and you have a signed contract with them, then writing a letter to the seller is very, very helpful. And so with that letter to a seller, you can actually go in the description. We have a link for a template that you can use for that. Just grab it, go have fun with it. But having an offer that is unconditional and preparing your finances ahead of time is really, really important. So here is what Lindsay said, who's one of our mortgage brokers. Yes, there are a few lenders that will fully underwrite the pre-approval. However, this will most likely go away shortly as banks are getting busier. The client needs to be fully pre-approved. All docs must be into the broker so we can ensure there are 0 surprises. Down payment docs need to be clean, and if they need to be organized, we will call employers to verify the info, and there'll be more documents asked for upfront to ensure accuracy. It will be on a case-by-case basis for giving the green light to go unconditional, as I also need to advise the clients of the consequences and make sure they have a backup plan. Having all of your documents into a mortgage broker is a fantastic way to ensure that when you get into the situation of multiple offers, that you can potentially win that offer. So number 6 is all about being rushed in making a decision. So if you feel like you don't make good decisions under pressure, this market might not be the best for you. Because sometimes when you show up to a house and you're looking at a property, you can easily have a couple other buyers looking at it at the same time because properties are going quickly. And actually, Erin on her team, I heard her say today, she had over 50 showings on a property a couple weeks ago, and it went conditional, obviously. So you could have a lot of people looking at it, and you could feel that, not anxiety, but just that pressure of making a decision quickly. So here's a few tips. First one is go back to number 5, because that's a great tip with what Lindsay said and getting prepared for everything. The second one is to kind of change your expectations when you're actually looking at properties. So instead of looking at 10 homes in a day, there isn't the inventory or the luxury of doing that in this market. So you're probably going to be going out and seeing homes, maybe 2 houses last minute because they just came on the market and you got to go see what it's like. So when you go to those properties, don't always think that you have to make a decision on, is this the one and am I going to write on it? Maybe sometimes if you're feeling pressure, just look at the house. Because part of buying process is actually discovering what you like, what you don't like. And I mean, actually, when we first started in real estate, there was these old agents who are probably my age now that I think of it, but they were probably in their mid 40s at the time. And they would always say, buyers are liars. And I was like, what is that all about? But what I realized and what they meant is buyers don't always know what they want. And it's through the process of looking at properties and uncovering what you really need and really want is kind of what you need to do. So use the time that you're looking at properties to uncover what you truly want and go off of your experiences. You've rented places, you've looked at places, you've lived in places. Use those experiences to come up with that list of what you really, really need and really, really want. And don't be rushed. But if you have to make a decision, make sure you're lined up, you have the right team, and you can make a good decision and the time frame that you need to so that you can win the house. Now, number 7 is all about overspending. If you are nervous about overspending for your next property, then maybe this market isn't the right one for you. What I mean by that is not like spending more than what your budget is. I actually mean overspending in value for what you think that property should be worth versus what you're actually paying for it. Because as we move into 2024, 25, and 26, I watched a really interesting call the other day by Ben Robideau, who's an economist, and he said historically Calgary has traded, which meaning the value of properties, were at a slight premium to the national average of home values back kind of before 2014, almost like a 5 to 10% premium compared to the national average. But our market is very cyclical, and when you look backwards, after the oil price crash in 2015, it started trading at a discount. And at the lows in about 2022, we were trading almost at 40% less than what the national average is. At that time, that's when he said, I feel like it's gonna tick up. And currently we're at about 25% of what the national average is. So according to my math, according to looking at what the national average prices in Canada versus Calgary, we probably have another $100,000 to $200,000 of growth available to the city in terms of the average price in Calgary, which is crazy. If you're a local Calgarian, born and raised like I am, thinking that values could go that high, that is wild. So if you're nervous about overspending compared to what you've seen values in the past, don't be, because values are rising in Calgary, and that's kind of what's happening. And it's not a bad thing, but it's also not a good thing. It's just is what it is. And at the end of the day, there are actually 3 other major reasons why you may not want to buy a property, and you can find those right up here.